Welcome to the Galactic Mind Weather Report. So I'm coming to you today at the beginning of the 13-day wave spell of the Yellow Warrior. So this is 13 days dedicated to the evolution of our capacity to stand fearless in our own presence and fearlessly question our reality around us and find the path towards our dreams. So we've just closed off the 13 days with the Blue Night wave spell. Now this is a very intense energy that was confronting us, working on us to go, not rely on the outside world around us to dictate what we should be dreaming of, what we should be creating and doing, but forcing us into a place where we had to go inside, had to go internal to reconnect to that inner child, that dreaming that we had as a young one coming into this world, this part that was connected to the purpose that we had coming into this world that we forgot as we got caught up in the noise of our society, our families, and the chaos and the fun of life. So now that we've been working on this dream and reconnecting to that, now that may have come clean for you, are very clear, or it may still be a bit murky, but know that deep inside a part of you has connected stronger to that aspect. And now the Yellow Warrior wave spell that begins today, these next 13 days, are all about, it's the archetype of the pathfinder. It's the fearless warrior that goes into the woods, like behind us here, into the raw woods, following the dream. The warrior goes through and questions the path. Is this the path towards what my heart desires, what my heart calls for? And it continues and it fearlessly finds its way. And when it comes up against a dead end and realizes, this is not my path anymore, this is somebody else's path I'm on, the Yellow Warrior energy is calling for us to be fearless in acknowledging where we've lost our way. And not to blame it on the other who may have enticed you over onto their path through the woods, but to own full responsibility for the fact that it still takes two to tango. It still takes you or myself to fall prey to the temptation as such, to fall prey to this. Sometimes we want so much just to be told what to do, to take that pressure off our shoulders, because we haven't really been trained how to find our way through that we so willingly follow somebody who seems to shine a light, who seems to have what we want, or at least what we think we want. So it's very easy to get distracted and walk onto the wrong path. And so this Yellow Warrior wave spell is here for this next 13 days to really challenge you, to get you to question the path that you are walking, whether that path really truly resonates with your heart and resonates with your dreaming. And how are you walking that path? Is the way that and be fearless with your reflection on this, the way that you are walking your day-to-day path, does that reflect the way that you are speaking, the way that you are thinking? Often we have these ideals, these images of how we're walking in the world, often actually fueled by insecurity and self-doubt. We create this, we overcompensate and create these ideas of who we are because we're worried about, failing. We're worried about making mistakes and getting it wrong and what happens, is everyone going to laugh at me if I do it wrong? So we often subconsciously just find the safe route. We find the safe path, which is often somebody else's path. And we often speak, talk the talk, but get very busy pointing out at others at where they're not walking their talk. And ironically, even in that action, often goes against the talk itself. So this brings me to Brené Brown. I was listening to her audiobook again about being in the wilderness of society and life, and she talked about this beautiful analogy or metaphor, or she was talking about this concept of strong back, soft front, and I think it comes from Buddhist principles, and I really found it was so perfect for this Yellow Warrior wave spell. And what she was essentially talking about is, we often walk forward into the world with a hard front. So the part of ourselves we show to the world, we are very hard. We've locked it up and it has become rigid with all these self-defense mechanisms and protection devices and belief systems and all these things that we're holding on to, these overcommitments and all this different stuff. has created a rigid front to protect the back of us, to protect our hearts. We create this false front, in a sense, or a hard front, and we have a soft back. You know, the back, the willpower, the courage, the strength, to hold shoulders back straight. I know for the first 20 years of my life, I was very hunched over like this. You know, I'm 6'5" or 192 centimeters, whatever that is, you know, pretty tall. And for my first 20 years, I was always hunched over like this. You know, self-confidence, not believing in myself. But then as you begin to believe in yourself, and this is what the Yellow Warrior is all about, is to find the fearlessness inside yourself. Find the strength in your spine, in your body, to pull your shoulders back, open up that chest, and show your heart to the world. And so the idea Brené Brown is talking about is that we want to work towards having this hard back, this strong back, and a soft, vulnerable front that we show to the world. So essentially meaning that we need to, you know, through this Yellow Warrior Wavespell, we need to be fearless in working on where am I letting down, you know, where am I not strong in how I present myself to the world? Where is my lack of self-esteem, my self-confidence? What is that stemming from? And fearlessly finding the path to clearing that. Because what's happening at the moment out there in the world, at least what I've observed, is that with everyone essentially, you know, not getting taught emotional self-regulation and emotional intelligence and these kinds of things through our upbringings, we're going out in the world with these hard fronts and we're bashing up against each other. We're pointing, we're poking fingers at each other, making accusations, passing the blame and responsibility from one person to the next like a hot potato. And I really feel that this is coming because we haven't really developed that strong spine, that stability, this core stability in ourselves to have a strong back. Because when we learn to believe in ourselves, when we develop that strength, there comes a fearlessness of the heart, not an angry fearlessness, not because in a way that's not fearless, that's full of fear, yet overcompensating and raging to try and overcome it. True fearlessness is like the stillness of a storm that just holds presence. And someone can poke their fingers at you, call you names, tell you whatever they like. But if you've got a strong back, if you've got a strong spine anchored into the earth, and you know that's just their shit, you don't even need to discuss it. It takes two to tango. You don't need to get involved. And what happens is when we start to develop this strength through this fearless questioning of how we're walking our path and looking at ourselves and taking responsibility for how we're interacting with others, of whether we're being codependent, or whether we're expecting everyone to not hurt us and looking for comfort everywhere. You know, and this was what I was going to say, was that you look around the world right now, we're trying to legislate peace into the world. We're trying to create policies and laws all around the world with our governments to say, you can't say this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you have to call people by this term or that term, and we're creating all of this regulation to try and stop people from being hurt under the blanket of equality. And there's a lot of people, you know, raging like warriors for this equality. But when you drop into that, it's not sustainable. You know, we cannot protect people forever with laws and regulations. We're actually creating a lockup, which is stopping our creative evolutionary edge. And so when we look at equality, you know, we need to get rid of the problem that's causing the equality in the first place. And true equality in my eyes in this case is to begin to offer these people who are struggling, the minorities that are being picked on, all these people, and give them the extra support and services to help them develop the skill set that they need for emotional regulation, for self-care, for knowing how to get help, for knowing how to look after themselves, how to avoid problems. Not because, you know, that everyone should get away with being bullies and being mean, but because you can't protect them all the time. True equality is giving everyone the same tools, the same options, the same possibilities to overcome this. and provide education and support to the bullies. Because those out there that are, the homophobes and the all these things that people are, calling each other names and the racism and all these things, they all stem from ignorance, not from conscious choice. Someone didn't just wake up and think as they're growing up as a child, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'd love to be a racist. They don't do that. They don't do that. It's a product of the conditioning of their upbringing and of their life that is to this point. And equality is giving them the support too. Finding ways to create an environment, not by telling them, not by sitting them at a desk and telling them off like small children and lecturing them. That never works. Just makes it worse. Creates more separation. Just watch what this legislation is doing. It's the left and right are splitting further and further apart. When the fact is, we all want the same thing. And so this yellow warrior is about being fearless. Fearless in questioning, what is it that we want? What is it that you need? And how can you provide that for yourself? And not rely on others. But at the same time, how can you ask for help? How can you know who you can ask for help from in a healthy manner and who not to ask for help from? How can you work out how to be self-responsible and not push the responsibility for your life out into the world around you? And this is challenging. I'm sure people are getting triggered possibly by what I'm saying already, thinking, yeah, but what if it's like this? Then I've got no control over that. And yeah, shit's gonna happen out there in the world. There's gonna happen around us, the things we don't like. We're gonna be confronted. We're gonna get abuse at times. There's gonna be these things happening. And sometimes we can't control that. But what we can control is how we perceive it and how we respond to it. And this is not to let anyone off the hook or say it was okay or any of that kind of jazz. It's about reclaiming your power. Because when any of this kind of abuse happens, the abuse is done, the perpetrator's gone. But when you carry that story and you carry that victim mentality, which is totally understandable because that's what it was. But if you continue to carry that into your life, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, then it continues to perpetuate. The abuse continues to be as real as it was that day. And the perpetrator could be long gone. They might have even left the planet. Yet the effect lives on. And it's a challenge. It's tough. It's scary. To step into that vulnerability. To have self-responsibility and say, I actually have something I can do about this. And so it's about, this yellow warrior Wavespell is about really knowing yourself. Really, really knowing yourself. Taking that journey, the hero's journey, to take every challenge that comes your way as an obstacle that can make you stronger, that can make you wiser, that can make you more compassionate, more loving, more vulnerable. Because true strength, a true courageous warrior, is a vulnerable one. Is one with the open heart, the open chest plate, exposing, saying, I'm here. And when we put our swords down and we can be fearless in that way and open our hearts to another, unconditionally, you would be amazed by the effect that it has on the world around you. How quickly people follow suit, because in the end, really, when we go right down into the core of somebody, nobody wants to fight. Nobody actually wants to hurt each other. We're all just scared. So, with all that being said and done, be very gentle with yourself through this yellow warrior Wavespell. Be very kind to yourself. Be very understanding and compassionate with those around you. And if you feel the need to pull that emotional sword and swipe at somebody to have a reaction, see if you can just take a moment to just breathe and just go get some space alone and let it settle. And get some clarity whether pulling that sword out is really necessary. And if it is, hey, go for it. But just see if you can take a little time to reflect on what part you're playing in these conflicts what part you're playing in these challenges, and see how you can potentially take self-responsibility for disarming your half of that war. And then you begin to go inside and you begin to reclaim your heart again. And when you reclaim that power and you get that strong back, you'll find you don't need to have that hard, rough front that grinds up against the people around you. And you can begin to slowly and gradually open that front more and more, the heart, what you show to people, because your back is strong enough to support you through it. And when we can get that strength, then we can become interdependent as opposed to codependent. Codependency is that hard front latching on for safety and security. Interdependence is when you've got the strong back and the open front working together, relying on that compassion and unconditionally with each other to work to create a better world. So may your yellow warrior Wavespell go with ease and grace, and I'll see you mid-Wavespell. Much love in Lakesh.